And initially, we start off here by seeing some articles, some text, and newspaper clippings of some economic and world news devastations happening around the world. Mainly what looks like it's been happening here over the past 6 months, because we do even see something mentioning the aftermath here of the Blood Hunt event. Then there's this letter here, and it's a Latvian press office letter, and it says for immediate release. And it mentions how 6 months ago, Dr. Victor Von Doom became Sorcerer Supreme, then disappeared behind Latvia's closed borders. And what has only been a few months without Doom's benevolent guidance feels too many, like a lifetime. Still, only a few recognize this time for what it is, the calm before the storm. And as we continue on, we see this Latvian flag here in the background, and then we hear the voice of Doom as he's giving a speech. And he mentions here, he's like, "You rush to platitudes like drowning men swarming a lifeboat. How two peaceful nations will not choose to go to war with one another. You tell yourselves as if repetition makes it true. Yet even a superficial glance at history proves it. Government will not save you. But no, two countries colonized by the same fast food franchises have ever attacked each other. You plead, and this is equally untrue. Capitalism cannot save you. Nothing can save you, save for the enlightened rule of a single person who can make the hard choices. One who is above being bribed, being corrupted, who does not care about the petty comforts that confound other men. Doom is above money. Doom is above desire. Doom is above all. And in his magnanimity, in his pity, in his greatness, Doom will save you, as we see him making this broadcast here. And where you see him making this from is going to be interesting later on. And listen, this long diatribe continues, because he's like, earlier this morning, the leaders of every nation on earth, kings and queens and warlords and presidents, each willingly swore fealty to Doom. As of this moment, every nation on earth has become a province of a unified earth, a new, grand, united Latveria. To those watching this broadcast, I know it must be shocking for you. Changes to power hierarchies often are, and I know what you now expect. Perhaps slave labor, building eternal monuments to the glory of Doom, or perhaps death squads. Yes, to hunt down the enemies of Doom, finally ending the threat of the dangerous and hated Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. No, for in the face of his unprecedented power, Doom is not petty. I'm like, sure he isn't, right? Doom is humble. Doom is magnanimous. And Doom begins his rule with but two small decrees. War between nations is, of course, outlawed. There shall be no conflict between Latvia's provinces. This is the new peace under Doom, the Pax Victory. I'm pretty sure I just said that wrong, but leave me alone. And then he continues on. It is the first of Doom's gifts to the world. Now, what's interesting here is that while he's saying this, you see a man that's like loading up a gun. And like I said, the speech continues. He says, the second gift is this: you are all citizens of Earth, yet you all have not until now been treated with the same baseline respect that demands. You have struggled under inequality. You have been made to go without medicine, without knowledge. You have been made to pay for basic care, or you have been made to die. And here we see that same guy that was loading up that gun. He reaches out to this General Bureau, and he's like, yo, are you hearing this crap right now? And as Doom continues, he's like, but there are certain privileges to being Latvian, and there is a certain minimum standard of living that Latveria bestows, and it insists upon for all her citizens. Every nation will now not only care for the bodies of her citizens through free and truly universal healthcare, but it will also care for their minds through local elite tier education, all the way to postgraduate levels for everyone who chooses to avail themselves of it. No longer shall the highest levels of attainment be reserved only for those who can afford immigration, much less schooling. These ideas, these easy and arguable wins for civilization are not new. Now, they are expensive, yes, and complex, yes, but they were never impossible. They have simply been left on the table through greed, through moral, through cowardice. And Doom suffers from neither affliction. And that same man that we saw loan up that gun earlier, whoever he's on the phone with, he's like, okay, agreed. If the bureaucrats accept this, then we don't accept them. Air Force is with us too. We move now or we don't move at all. But the thing about it is that Doom knew that this was going on because he mentioned, he's like, this is incidentally the moment when my address would have ended, were it not for an uprising already being planned against me. And in that moment, that same guy that was on the phone, what looks like Doom bots come in to attack him. And Doom continues on, he's like, and I see that there are also rogue elements in the militaries of Russia, Rwanda, and India who move against Doom. And now, yes, some of our, Canada, and even the United States. And he mentions how it's disappointing, but it's not unexpected. Change is always hard. But worry not, these minor uprisings have already been dealt with. Pax Victoris stands, and these provinces will not be punished. How merciful of Doom, right? But he does mention, he's like, but know that even Doom's mercy does have its limits. And he continues on, he's like, my cabinet and I will be watching events closely from here in Liberia, working for our greater glory. There will be further broadcasts as events warrant. And he continues on, he's like, a final note, Doom has left your old leaders in place, free to govern just as they have before, save for the responsibility of implementing my orders. Your day-to-day will not change, except for, as you have already seen, certain significant improvements. And this is where we see the United States flag that is on top of that White House changes over to the Latvian flag. And he continues on, he's like, know too that this transition is being implemented with the full support of your leaders. So he got everybody in his pocket. Doom is wisdom, Doom is power, and Doom is prosperity. And he leaves him with this reminder, he's like, and only Doom can save you. End transmission. So later on, we see our heroes, right? We see the Avengers, we see the Fantastic Four, we see a couple other Squirrel Girl, and some others that you'll see here is sprinkled on in. And they're trying to figure out, like, what do we do now? Some of which, of course, are in disbelief. Sue has mentioned how it felt pretty real to the generals who attended that coup, and how it's shocking that there are even those in Wakanda that have welcomed Doom. And based on the interactions that we saw between Shuri and Doom in the Blood Hunt series, I wouldn't be surprised if Shuri actually did agree to kind of work with Doom. I don't know. We'll have to see as we move on here, right? So then Spider-Man begins to kind of go through his theories. He's like, okay, with all the head of states, you know, is it possibly that this is mind control? And have they been replaced with Doom bots? Or is it some other option that we haven't even thought of yet? And Doctor Strange, he mentions, like, there must be a reason why Doom is attempting this now after having stole the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme. And I'm like, this revisionist history is kind of crazy because he didn't really steal the mantle. Like, Strange asked him for help and then Strange willingly gave the mantle. It's just that Doom didn't give it back. Like, that's the difference, right? But either way, what Strange thinks is that this must be magic. So then Squirrel Girl's trying to figure out, she's like, well, why not have it affect us too? Now, Scarlet Witch, she sees this as a good thing, the fact that they're all still themselves, but she can't detect any sort of like magical influence in the room. And she mentions how she can't detect it around the world as well. So this is continually becoming a little complex for him. Thor, of course, just wants to wage into battle. Captain Marvel is like, well, this is Victor that we're talking about here. This dude has plans for his plans and traps within those plans. So we got to be careful in regards to what we're doing. Now, one thing that Captain Marvel did mention here is how she did get a message here from Black Widow, and how Black Widow has been in Europe surveilling Hydra. And unfortunately, she went dark a couple days ago. So she plays a transmission for them. And this is what it says. It says, Widow here, there's been major movement since Doom's broadcast. I'm patching you into my surveillance feeds now, but it looks like in a moment that won't be necessary. And we get here a picture of Hydra and Zemo. And then we hear the voice of Zemo. He's like, people of Earth, I am Baron Zemo. I'm reaching out to you using the same broadcast override that Doom did, but unlike him, I will make this brief. Many of you don't like me, but don't worry, we in Hydra have long known we don't need your love to earn your respect. And if you know anything, know this, neither Baron Zemo nor Hydra itself will ever be ruled over by anyone, much less by a rootless, degenerate mongrel. And as Black Widow looks on, we see the very idea, this is a voice of Zemo still, he's like, the very idea is laughable. Doom playing at being emperor, a man whose ancestors never even earned themselves a homeland, and how his forces and him are on the edge of Latveria. The barrier surrounding it is permeable to us thanks to our superior Hydra technology. We now march on Doomstat, we march on Doom, and how they will end this ridiculous charade once and for all. So Black Widow mentions how she's following them in and how she's picking up some interference as she approaches the barrier. So don't be surprised if she was about to say, if I lose connection, and then the signal gets lost. So Iron Man's like, well, you know, the expression, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And of course, Cap's like, hell to the nah, that ain't the case. So being how they saw that Baron Zemo was able to kind of just march onto Latveria without any sort of resistance, they're like, okay, well, maybe we should do the same, and how they're not afraid of a little resistance. But I'm like, isn't this like too easy? Why would they let Zemo just march on in without any resistance, right? This gotta be a trap. So they all agree to travel to Latveria to deal with Zemo and then to deal with Doom. And because they know that Doom would have surveillance, what they do is that Sue Storm, she uses an invisible force field to cover the plane. Now, when they arrive, the Thing tries to punch through the force field, but he gets denied. And then that's when Black Widow shows up. She's like, now you see the problem that I had being able to follow them on in, and how she would have warned them sooner, but of course her comms went down, so that was not a possibility. Now, Captain Marvel mentions how it feels like there's an energy dome that's surrounding the country, but it's something that she can interact with. And then Vision kind of starting to put two and two together. He's like, if this shield can prevent me from phasing through it, it must be stronger than what Baron Zemo encountered, which should have sent up some red flag to them, right? And Wanda mentions how this is Sorcerer Supreme magic, and given a few weeks that she might be able to come up with a spell that would weaken it, but it don't got that type of time. Now, in that moment here, Reed Richards, he mentions how there's another broadcast that's coming in, and now it's not from their current location. So Captain Marvel's like, okay, well, it gotta be Zemo then, let's see it. And she's right, it was Zemo. So Zemo pops up and he's like, hello again, Earth. Baron Zemo here to announce that I was in fact mistaken. And I'm like, okay. And here we see him standing right next to Doom. And then Doom says, Doom demands schools and hospitals. Thus, Hydra will build them under whatever supervision the local authorities deem appropriate to ensure that they are built quickly and effectively. And then Zemo's like, other branches will work on clearing landmines from contaminated areas around the world. Hydra, these are our top and only priorities. So Iron Man's like, yo, this gotta be fake, until when the authorization code goes through and Zemo's like, all right, I'm out. And then he's like, oh shoot, like, no, this is actually real. So then Squirrel Girl goes back to the old theory of, yo, it gotta be some sort of like magical mind control then. It gotta be affecting him and then also the other world leaders. And Dr. Strange's like, yeah, it would seem that way, but you can tell that he's not truly convinced, right? So now Reed Richards, he's trying to trace the source of wherever that transmission was coming from. He realizes that it's not actually ground level, that it's coming from some sort of like flying platform, which is only a few hundred kilometers away. And Cap Sam's like, okay, that's not a base, that's a city. And Captain America, Steve, is like, a Hydra flying island? I crashed it one into the ocean a while back. So Captain Marvel, she comes up with a plan. She's like, I suggest that we split up, some stay here to try to find a way in, while others go to the base to track down Doom and Zemo. Sue mentions how she could try to nullify it with equal and opposite wavelengths, assuming it has, or it even has wavelengths in the first place. Squirrel Girl mentions how it's a great idea, plus the thing's gotta have a bottom, right? We could try burrowing. So then they move out. Now, up on that flying platform, we hear someone saying detective members of the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and other heroes arriving on our island. Then we see Zemo and he's like, all right, well, go kill them then. Now, when they arrive on in, we see these Hydra agents and they start firing. Braka, braka, braka. Iron Man and Storm, they're teaming up up top. While they're going through the fight here, Sam realizes, or he thinks to himself, he's like, the central tower, that's got to be where Zemo's at. So Captain Marvel gives out the order. She's like, okay, we got our target now, let's move out. Now, as Iron Man heads over to the tower, he realizes that it's sealed and that there's no windows and there's just a single door that's at the very bottom. And Captain Marvel's like, how much do you want to bet that that armored door is reinforced and magically sealed? So Iron Man, using the repulsor here from his Mysterium armor, he blasts through it. And when whatever rubble is around comes down, we see behind, we see Zemo. So then the rest of the group, they come all rushing in. And as Captain Marvel flies on in and grabs up Zemo, he doesn't take too kindly to the fact that she's putting her hands on him. And Zemo was like, Hydra will not permit this. Doom will not permit this. But then Cap said was like, yo, since when does Hydra submit to Doom? Which is a question that I've been asking, right? So Zemo's like, what do you know about power? What do you know about ambition? So then Cap, he mentions, he's like, what do you know of October 1st, 1945? And I'm gonna be honest with you, Zemo's like, huh? And I'm like, huh? What is he talking about? So then in that moment, Cap uses his shield and he knocks off Zemo's head. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So that wasn't Zemo at all, because we can see that it was a mechanical bot. So then Cap explains, he's like, the date Hydra was founded by Baron Strucker was that date, and how he's never forgotten, and how Zemo would not have forgotten either. So then Reed is like, okay, a Doombot, of course, but I believe this may actually be of use to us. And how Doombots, they carry recordings of their actions, and how he's never let Victor know that he can sometimes recover them, and how they may be able to use this to learn what Doom has actually done. So when they go in, that's when we see Doom doing some tinkering here. Well, it's actually not tinkering. It looks like he's killing Zemo, and that's exactly what he did. And Stormer's like, this dude took the easiest path possible to kill Zemo and then to replace him with an obedient Doombot. So then Human Torch comes in, he's like, but he couldn't have like done that to every other leader in the world, could he? So Tony's like, all right, yo, this proves now that Doom has been lying to the whole world and acting like he's changed into some sort of like great leader by buying, you know, bread with circuses, as he mentioned here, but how he hasn't really truly changed. And Captain Marvel's like, yo, that Nazi is like hardly a great loss, but he's like, it's proof that this is a whole fraud. It is ultimately all founded on death. So he asks Reed, he's like, yo, can you duplicate that broadcast override? Because a lie can travel around the world while the truth is still pulling on its repulsor boots. And I would like to give old truth a fighting chance. So Reed's like, yeah, sure, let me do it. And in that moment, that's when we see Iron Man broadcasting to the entire world. He's like, hey, Earth, Iron Man here. You're probably wondering what the heck's going on with Hydra and Doom. Or you're just waking up and, you know, he kind of just throws in some extra words in there. But what he mentions here is how they're going to broadcast footage just as soon as he's done talking to prove that Doom himself hasn't changed, and how he didn't open Baron Zemo's eye to some glorious humanitarian purpose. How he crushed him out of the back of his head when he killed him and replaced him with a Doombot, a mechanical puppet, just as Doom will kill anyone else who gets in his way. And how he's lying to them, and how they shouldn't believe him, and how they're going to take care of it. So then in that moment, that is when we hear, or Spider-Man hears, Hydra and sounds of shouting. And when they look down below, they see all these Hydra agents coming forward. But what really shifts the tides here is what happens next, because they mention elsewhere in Europe. And we see a guy, a Hydra agent, yelling, he's like, our leader is murdered. The Baron is dead. So now your lives are forfeit too. And then we see this woman walking her child in a stroller. She's like, please, we don't have anything to do with this, like my baby. But then the Hydra agent's like, oh, but you have so much to do with this. These people are your heroes, so you will pay the price. And then he tries to like shoot at her, but then he gets shot, and we're like, from who? And it looks like a magic bullet, because we can see like the magical smoke coming from his body. And then the voice says, that was a mistake. And then we see Dr. Doom on Sorcerer Supreme Doom on a Doom dinosaur, fam. Like, what is going on here? And then Doom broadcasts again. He's like, my loyal subjects, a confession. I did lie to you, but I do not apologize for it. He's like, yes, I killed Zemo, and months ago, I killed the Red Skull too. These men were proud, unrepentant Nazis and the leaders of a virulent gang of racists. They were, in short, a problem, one that Earth's mightiest heroes have been trying and failing to solve since World War II. But Doom, I did it for you in a day. A slight deception, a simple lie of omission, and I had Hydra clearing landmines. I had them building schools, hospitals. Unfortunately, the Avengers and their ilk, they couldn't stand it. So rather than risk their decades of ineptitude, their fundamental torpidity being revealed, they tore down my work. If they couldn't save you, then they would ensure that no one else could. And it's in this moment when Iron Man realizes, he's just like, yo, this dude saw saw us coming. And Captain Marvel explained, she's like, he knew that Zemo would be unable to resist attacking him, so he prepared for that. He let them in, just as Victor knew that they'll be unable to resist revealing the truth. And so he was prepared for both of them. And Reed continues on, he's like, and we just played precisely into his hands. And then Doom continues on, he's like, in this way, those so-called heroes were correct. This was the only chance to bend Hydra to useful ends, and it is now truly dead by their hands. But I will clean it up. Their mess. You are safe. You are cared for. Doom is wisdom. As he uses his Doom dinosaur here to stomp out that last Hydra agent, and he's like, Doom is power. And we see him put out his hand to this woman that was about to be killed by the Hydra agent. He's like, Doom is also prosperity. And the woman says, and only Doom can save us. Now, as a result, we're starting to see more now. There's a global survey that shows that there's 10% or there's a 10% increase in people who are now in agreement with Doom's actions. Now, while it's a low 15%, it's still a 10% increase from the last time. In addition to that, there are some historians who are now reporting that there have been no incidents of armed conflict between nations anywhere on the planet. And this is the first time that something like that has happened. There are also some predictions that are coming out here that as it pertains to Doom's hospitals that he's going to be building, stating that if those do come online, that the number of lives that could be saved could ultimately here be in the millions. All in all, this is just stating that basically things are getting better across the world because of Doom's plan. And Doom is looking good, but the Avengers, they're starting to lose the world's trust little by little. So right now we pick up on the Fantastic Four team out in Arizona, and they're going up against what looked like some Hydra minions. Now, Reed Richards is going on basically talking about how they still have the advantage right now because it's only a few citizens that have seemed to welcome Doom as their legitimate ruler. But Invisible Woman doesn't see it the same way. She's like, a few isn't the same as none, and how some of their neighbors are proving that. So Reed also lets her know, he's like, listen, relatedly, I've been looking into the new schools and universities that Doom has constructed. And Johnny's basically chomping at the bits because he's like, okay, what am I supposed to burn down here? Is it indoctrination centers? Is it re-education compounds? Is it some old-fashioned mind control towers? But Reed lets him know, he's like, no, they're just schools. The curriculum thus far has been normal, more than normal. It's ambitious. I'd go as far to say, to call it laudable. As near as I can tell, they're just well-funded and well-founded public services. But the way that the Thing sees it, he's like, Doom's always planning something. We may not know what it is, but we know that the longer that we wait, it is the more that he's going to consolidate his forces, and also the public's opinion as well. And Sue agrees. She's like, that's true. Doom is trying to win politically, claiming hearts and minds by building up this legend for himself. So Johnny's like, well, let's beat him up already then, right? We don't actually need to defeat Doom to win. We just need to make him look weak and silly and angry. And that's how you burn down a legend. You make him look like a chump. So after they're done wrapping up this saving the day mission right now out in Arizona, we see Valeria pop up here on comms talking to Sue. And she says to Sue, she's like, you remember Bentley from the Future Foundation? He's worried about Doom, and I think he could use a friend. Can I take the teleporter to NYC? So Sue, not suspecting anything, she's like, of course, Val, be home for dinner. And the rest of the team continues their conversation. The Thing's like, all right, Doom, as it pertains to him, we just need to get him embarrassed. And there's nothing that makes him more embarrassed than losing a fight against the ever-loving Fantastic Four specifically, especially in front of an audience. But Sue's like, the only problem is that we don't know where he is. But Rita's like, but we may be able to determine where he's going to be. And he mentions how he's been tracking security changes around a certain building in New York. And this, when combined with the registered flight paths of private jets and knowledge of Victor himself, that leads him to believe one thing, that tomorrow morning, Victor Von Doom will be addressing the important dignitaries at the United Nations, and the whole world will be watching. So Sue's like, all right, well, that's our shot then. We reveal Doom for who he really is, who he's always been. Tomorrow morning, we show the world who's really been leading them. So then we transition here to what Valeria has been cooking up as we go over to New York City here at the Baxter Building. And we hear the voice that says, "You are precisely on schedule, Valeria." And she responds back, she's like, "Come on, you know I wouldn't miss this. You're important to me." And then we see that it's the voice of Dr. Doom as she gives him this big old hug to her goddaddy Doom. And Doom is pleased to see how punctual his goddaughter can be. And they continue on this really important dialogue, at least I think so. So she thanks Doom for agreeing to meet with her. And Doom was like, "I was expecting more resistance from the Baxter Building security systems. I didn't even need to employ magic." And he's like, "Was it your influence, I suppose?" And Valeria's like, "You are both unopposed and unrecorded. I coded you as a member of the family, but anything human would set off alarms. So welcome, Princess the Pooch." So Doom was like, "Clever. Doom takes no insult, as none was intended. Nor will I add, have I done anything untoward while inside your building." And Valeria's like, "I know, Uncle Doom, you gave me your word." So Doom continues. He's like, "Just as you gave your parents your word, you were coming to New York for Bentley 23, was it?" So she's like, "Listen, it's a lie of omission, not a fabrication. I will meet him when we're done. But you and I, we don't play those games with each other, do we? We give each other the truth." So Doom continues on. He's like, "Listen, you are a young woman who has already exceeded the high expectations I'd set for you at birth. You hold Doom's favor, Doom's respect, and Doom's love. You have experienced the merest taste of any, and none have ever possessed all three. I keep no secrets from you, Valeria, and I shall continue to do so." So Valeria's like, "All right then, give me the truth. Make me understand. Tell me exactly what you're planning." So Doom's like, "Why tell you, Valeria? I can show you." So he transports them to a location here out in Canada, which he'll explain in a second. And he tells you, like, "Valeria, you travel with the Sorcerer Supreme. My magic has grown. Our presence here shall not be noted. We are at the site of the municipal government in a minor Canadian city. It is a symbol of suffrage, pluralism, and representational governance such as it is." And he says, "Justify it." So Valeria's like, "Justify municipal government?" And he's like, "No, democracy. This one, anyone, it does not matter. Defend democracy to me." So she's like, "Okay, I defend it by looking at the alternatives. Consider a world without collective action, without government of any kind. Everyone is fighting for their own self-interest, without rules, without organization, without a way to stop bad actors." And Doom was like, "Precisely, Valeria. That's it, precisely. You impress me even now. Get into the heart of the matters right away. In an anarchy of individuals, there's no authority, no control. Opportunities are lost over and over again, as power comes only from strength, with alliances forming and breaking out of mere self-preservation. It is chaos without room for morality. It precludes progress, and you rightfully refuse to accept such a system." And then the dialogue continues. "Why then, if you reject anarchy at the level of the individual, do you accept it at the level of nations?" And he's like, "Until Doom, our world was a confusion of 200 competing nations, Valeria, each fighting and scheming for their own self-interest, with no authority to bend those impulses to useful ends. It was the very definition of anarchy, and by your own admission, it should never have been tolerated." So she says, she's like, "That may be how you sell it to others, but I know it's not how you justify it to yourself. Don't tell me you're doing this for humanity, and don't say you're doing it for me. The truth, again, Uncle Doom." So he's like, "The truth, Valeria Richards, is simple. It has always been simple. I seek glory. There is no greater motivation, no greater proof that my efforts are sincere in uniting the world. I've already done what others have long said was impossible." But then she's like, "But these changes you've made, you've done it without consideration for freedom, for consent from the governed. Imposing your rule on people is just fat." And then he's like, "No. Fascism builds its foundation upon a lie, Valeria. My rule is founded upon truth. That Doom is the best of us, and the only one qualified to achieve this great unification." So once again, she's like, "I'm sorry, but I can't follow you there. A claim like that, you need proof. And then he cuts her off again. He's like, "Which is why I am working very quickly to prove it to the world, to earn its consent, including from you, Valeria. Doom hopes he will convince you." So then she says again, she's like, I don't know whether or not to say that I hope so too, Uncle Doom. And then he snaps again. So he's like, then say nothing and let my actions draw you toward your own conclusions. And in that moment, that's when Valeria is transported back into her home. And of course, Mama Sue wants to know, she's like, hey, I want to hear about how it went with Bentley, but we know she wasn't with Bentley, right? So then the next day here, we fast forward now to see where Doom's broadcast is about to begin. And then we hear the voice here of Doom. He's like, though everyone here is an ally, you know there was some initial unpleasantness in the transition to the new order. But he's like, but things are changing. Your lives are getting better each and every day. But then on the outside, the Fantastic Four, they have showed up as well. And when they show up outside the building, what they see are Doombots, of course. So he's like, all right, let's do what we do best. It's clobbering time. And Reed lets them know, he's like, listen, my readings confirm that these are robots, as they appear to be. There's no hidden traps inside or any sort of innocent victims on the inside of these Doombots, so we don't need to hold back. Which, of course, is just music to the Thing's ears, right? Now, back on the inside, Doom continues his soliloquy. He's like, today, Doom offers you his next boon. We are a united Latveria. We shall henceforth and forever act like it. It cannot be, and thus it never was, ethical to forever treat someone as lesser simply because they were born on the wrong side of an imaginary line. No longer shall anyone be made to suffer from the accident of their birth. No, Doom co-signs this idea to history, to molder alongside slavery and other abominations of human ingenuity. You may live and work in whatever nation that you choose. All shall have free movement from anywhere to anywhere. I give you the gift of open borders. And you can see by the hands raised and the claps that they seem to be liking what Doom is putting down. So on the outside now, while the Fantastic Four are battling, Johnny's like, yo, doesn't this seem a little bit too easy? And Sue's like, I don't think so. I just think that Doom thinks that he's just so invincible. And I'm like, seriously, are they really feeling this way right now? So Reed continues, he's like, I detect no superpowers inside either. It's just Doom, an ordinary audience, and a global broadcast. And they're like, well, there's no time like the present. Let's show the world how petty he really is. And I'm like, this is a bad decision, right? Come on now. So back on the inside, Doom was like, listen, I have given you schools to improve your minds. I've given you hospitals to improve your bodies. And now Doom gives you freedom. Go where you want. Go where there is opportunity. Move freely. And remember that while any of your leaders could have granted you these freedoms, only Doom chose to. Only Doom made this happen, and only Doom can save you. And as soon as they say that, who comes barging on in? The Fantastic Four. A Thing pops in, he's like, hey, we came all this way, folks, to personally say this to Doom's face. You're a fraud, Doom. You're a monster and a thief, and you ain't to be trusted. The world don't want you, Doom. And Reed, as it is 2 cents, he's like, this madness has gone on too long. Enough, Victor. Those who love freedom will never kneel to you. Johnny adds his 2 cents. Sue adds her 2 cents. It's really following the same theme here. But then here's the thing. Doom was already prepared for this, right? So he's like, Richards, you and your ridiculous family have always been so eager to attack me. But one wonders, as you begin to see the civilians starting to arm themselves here with Doom guns. Like I said, he was like, but one wonders if you will be so eager to fight innocence instead. And this is where we begin to see the broadcast going out, right? And he says, know this, Fantastic Four, these are civilians, ordinary people who happen to believe in what I'm doing. They don't live in fancy towers as you do. They don't have a second home as you do. These are merely the great Platonian mass of men and women you've sworn to protect. Will you attack them, Richards, here in the United Nations of all places? Or perhaps you will try to crush their weapons in your force fields, Susan? Just as you did to the security outside? Before you do, know this. Their weapons are rigged to explode if tampered with, or if removed from their hands unwillingly, you'll kill them all. And Johnny's trying to plead with them. He's like, listen, can't you guys see that he's tricked you? He's using you as pawns. But then Doom cuts him off. He's like, no, Johnny, these patriots knew full well how these weapons operated before they picked them up. Such is their commitment to their belief in the cause of Doom. Tell me, will you respect their rights, their vision of a better planet, or will you kill them to bring about yours? Answer quickly, Richards. These choices you're making, they are being broadcast right now. So Reed's like, damn, I mean, like, you backed me up into a corner here. It's like, Victor, you know that we won't, obviously. So Doom's like, good. Then I see my mercy in letting you live in this better world was not misplaced. But Doom's mercy goes further than you even can imagine. And this is where it gets really real and super sad at the same time. So Doom is like, behold Benjamin Jacob Grimm, the powerhouse of the Fantastic Four, a man by error and ineptitude transformed into a monstrosity. He had to insult him like that, geez. A being so hideous he calls himself the Thing. So Ben's like, yo, what is this dude doing? So Doom continues, he's like, and behold, Reed Richards, our self-proclaimed smartest man who has failed to reverse Grimm's condition ever since. It is a staggering failure, a highlight remarkable even among the litany of disappointments of Mr. Fantastic. And the thing is going on, he's like, listen, I'm not mad at you anymore, Richards. Like, we're good. Like, don't worry about it. Don't listen to what he's saying. But Reed is more focused on Doom because he's like, what is this dude about to do? So then in that moment, Doom says, but Doom wants what's best for everyone, even for his most hated enemies. These four accuse me of weakness, of anger, of greed, and yet in his strength, in his greatness, in his generosity, Doom now grants what Richards could never. And in that moment, we see Thing being picked up. Doom is casting the spell. Ben is screaming and bzzz. I tried to make that sound out with my mouth and it didn't really sound the same way that I thought it would in my head. But listen. Doom continues on. He's like, and thus Doom cures the unfortunate Benjamin Grimm of his condition forever. And look at the look on Reed Richards' face, Sue's face, Johnny's face, and look at human Ben Grimm. Like the look of shock and devastation at the same time. Oh my goodness. And Ben is like, yo, what did he do to me? Reed, I ain't got my powers no more. I ain't got my powers. And Doom is just like, yeah. And Doom, he leaves now. And I presume that the Fantastic Four will pay for their damages to the United Nations building. And if not, then make sure that y'all detain them. And Doom's like, all right, end transmission. And then in the aftermath of this, we see reporters who are interviewing civilians. One of them was just like, listen, was the old way working? Honestly, was it? At least Doom's getting results. And then another one's like, I like how we killed those Nazis. And then another's like, tearing down the Berlin Wall was this global celebration, but somehow tearing down every other wall is bad? I don't see it. I can leave. You understand? For the first time in my life, I can leave. And then another one that's like, yeah, Doom's a fascist. He's a bad guy, blah, 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 blah. I heard it a million times. What I haven't heard is one reason why I should feel bad about that when I'm doing better right now than I ever have before. And he's fixing the vampires next, like he's with it, right? And then one is like, I get to stay. They can't kick me out anymore. That means something. While another one's like, yo, Doom's open up the floodgates. These new immigrants are gonna take our jobs, our land. I hate what he's doing, but this country's been going straight down the crapper for years now. That's why he's moving. And you can see the continual reports and people who are basically like feeding into what Doom is doing. And then we pan over here to Captain Marvel talking to the Avengers. And she's like, listen, the Avengers, we're losing. We're losing because we don't know what we're fighting. We've been assuming mind control on the part of the world leaders, given the speed and efficiency of Doom's overnight takeover. But we don't know, which is why I'm proposing a two-pronged attack to find out. She mentions a wing of magic users and espionage experts led by the Scarlet Witch. They will infiltrate all the capitals that they can, get close to their leaders, and discover how Doom got them to go along with this. And Scarlet Witch is like, assuming that they're not already Doombots, we'll free every leader we can from Doom's influence, thereby cutting off his international support from under him. And Captain Marvel continues, she's like, but an operation of this scope will require a distraction, which is why, at the same time, the rest of us are bringing the fight to Doom, to end this while we still can, and while most of the world still supports us. But Iron Man's not too confident. He's like, listen, he's beat us before. And Captain Marvel continues. She's like, not physically. We've had PR losses, not real ones. I assure you, we are more powerful than Doom, even if he's Sorcerer Supreme. Besides, we won't be going in with just the Avengers or the Fantastic Four. What's left of them anyways, poor Ben. What's happening here is huge and it's global. And as such, it transcends many of our old differences, which means Avengers, that we now find ourselves with an unconventional group of allies, all of whom stand ready to assist us in the final battle against Doom. And then we see the group that she's talking about. And the voice of MODOK says with his group around him, "Hey, Tony, welcome to the Masters of Evil." It is here where we see what comes of the Avengers deciding to team up here with some very interesting villains on what is supposed to be a two-pronged attack. One of brute force and then another on the mind, which for a moment does put Dr. Doom here on the back foot, but once again, he proves that he is like 10 steps ahead of them. But then what that leads to here is that it leads to another incredibly powerful villain deciding to step in because he himself has had enough. So where we pick up on this here is at the Impossible City here at the Avengers headquarters, and we see Tony Stark here bringing in MODOK and Doc Ock to meet the rest of the team. Now, Tony does decide to lay some ground rules here, one of which is to let MODOK know that in the Impossible City that they can block any sort of mind control attempt that MODOK would try. To which MODOK replies, he's like, listen, if I wanted to kill you, you would already be dead. But Doc Ock, on the other hand, he's like, the world is on the line, Stark. We don't have the luxury of you Avengers screwing up anymore. You need us. You need genius. Which, as we would have found out later on here, it was actually this group of villains that decided to reach out to the Avengers to lend a helping hand. So when they get to the rest of the group here, we're reminded of who these team of villains are that are going to be assisting the Avengers. We see Mysterio, we get Arcade, we got Baron Mordo, and then we also got Madeline Pryor. And of course, we've already seen MODOK and Doc Ock. And as things get settled here, this is where Captain Marvel lays out her plan. And she says, she's like, this is where we're at, people. We tried catching Dr. Doom in a lie, and he was ready for us. Then the Fantastic Four tried humiliation, and he was ready for that too. So that leaves the obvious. We're gonna beat the guy up. And while we're certain it's what Doom's expecting with a dozen intricate counter plans for us and our powers, I'm less certain of his ability to adapt those plans to the six of you. You are our wild cards. All you need to do is what you do best. Ruin some best laid plans. Fight, scheme, plot, destroy. Each of you has proven yourself in battle, and you've also proven, to my satisfaction, that you are all unwilling to tolerate a world under Doom as we are. And it's in this moment here where Mysterio basically acts as the reader's thoughts right here when he says, he's like, sorry, that's your master plan? Your big move? Punch Dr. Doom until he says he won't be Emperor anymore? Like, sis, he was absolutely ready for you the last two times. What's different now? So Scarlet Witch jumps in. She's like, listen, what's different, Mysterio, is that this giant battle against Doom, it's all but a distraction. And Iron Man lays it out. He's like, while we're fighting Doom, the Scarlet Witch and you, Baron Mordo and Madeline Pryor, will be combining your magic and telepathy to get inside the head of world leaders. The goal is to find out what Doom's done to them, which, when known, will let us knock Doom's source of power, support, and legitimacy right out from under him. So then Captain Marvel is like, all right, that's the pitch. And the only reason why we listened to y'all in the first place when y'all reached out to us. So y'all in or not? And slowly as they go around the room, all of them are like, all right, I'm in, let's get it done. So then later on here, that's where we pick up at the Latveria border. And MODOK is like, all right, so what do? We just wait for this dude to show up? But Captain Marvel is like, nah, what we do right now is that we knock. So all of them, well, most of them, decide to start blasting at this dude's barrier, which once again, I'm just like, guys, what are we doing here? We really think this is gonna work? Well, let's move on. Now, after they team up, crack, boom, and try to knock the door down, nothing happens. And Tony says, he's like, and all our energy doesn't even make a dent in his magical shield. And I'm like, duh. But he does mention, he's like, it's disappointing, but it's not unexpected. So he tells the Vision, he's like, all right, you're up. So Vision, he's like, this magic hit me out before, but I believe with practice, I might be able to adapt to it, find some way to phase through it, which is what he tries to do. But before he can even do that, here comes the voice of Dr. Doom. And he says, I assure you, Avengers, there is no need. For Doom has come to you. And I gotta tell you, every single time I see this Doom dinosaur, I'm like, this is just ridiculous, right? Come on now. But I love it. I can't lie to you. I love it. So MODOK is like, all right, silence, Doom. The only sound I'll hear is the sound of your death. And Doom is like, for real, like strange bedfellows you're keeping these days, Avengers. Have you really become so desperate? But then in that moment, Doom gets silent because he senses a single piercing bullet coming through his barrier of protective magic. And then it pierces the second barrier of his protective magic. And as this magically enhanced projectile approaches his armor, Victor Von Doom discovers players who up until now have been shielded from his sight. And who was it? None other than Arcade, who then says, hey Doc, figured if you weren't gonna visit my murder worlds, then it was only neighborly to bring them to you. Call it a coronation present. So Doom gets knocked down, just like how, by the way, you should knock down that like button so that this video can reach a wider audience. Also, if you're new, you should just subscribe too so that you never miss a video. So Doom cries out, he's like, the insolence, while Mysterio removes the illusion. And apparently they had a metal shredder that they were hoping that Doom would just fall into. So Doom's like, you fools, your cheap tricks are nothing. Do you not realize I can control my dinosaur doppelganger as readily as I control my own body? And then he continues on. He's like, his will is my will. I've dominated him entirely, and so you shall. But before he can continue that, here comes this arm that taps on Doom's shoulder. And now the rest of the Avengers are ready to hit him with everything that they've got. Crack-a-boom one more time. And Doom, this dude is pissed. He ain't having it. And he looks up and he's like, that was unwise. Now, as mentioned before, Scarlet Witch, Madeline Pryor, and Mordo, they were on another mission. And when we pick up on them, we see Scarlet Witch saying that she's in position. And she mentions that when she triggers the spell, the minds of every national leader around the world will be available to them, but it will only be for a moment. She checks in with Madeline. Madeline is all set. Then we check in with Baron Mordo. And he mentions how he's frozen the minds of anyone who might notice their presence. But then in that moment, Scarlet Witch can sense that there's something else going on with him. And she says, she's like, Baron, I am the Scarlet Witch, the living Darkhold. Even without our minds being linked, I will sense your thoughts of betrayal before you've even finished thinking them. So then Mordo's like, all right, never mind then, I'm ready too. So then they count it down. And it's in that moment where Scarlet Witch did not expect what she saw. And as she communicates to the Avengers, she says, it's not Doombots, Carol. So Captain Marvel's like, mind control then? If we can free them from Doom's thrall, we can. But then she cuts her off. She's like, it isn't that either. And then Madeline chimes in. She's like, Doom's only use of his Sorcerer Supreme power was to allow him to be in many places at once, to accomplish in a single night what would have been the work of years, maybe decades. So Captain Marvel's asking, she's like, work? What work? And Mordo continues. He's like, the work of negotiation, Captain, of tapping into the hate and fear already present after the vampire invasion, of building on the impression that the world is chaotic, the system broken, and the heroes just as bad as the villains. And Scarlet Witch continues on. She's like, Doom simply promised order, then offered everyone with power whatever they needed to secure their support. Money, security, health, time, sex, revenge. So she continues on. She's like, everyone got exactly what they wanted. There are no spells to break, no robot duplicates to punch. Doom didn't cheat, don't you see? This isn't magic, Carol. This is human nature. We chose this. So this is when Doom chimes in and he's like, now you know the truth. I did not take this title, I earned it. And then he tells them, he's like, and another truth that you have not yet realized is that Doom did not come here to fight. How in America, there's a group of the worst, much more deadly than the meager villains who accompany you today. And as MODOK screams, I'll kill him, he continues on. And he's like, and they are in the process of escaping your highest security prison. The raft is, I believe, your chosen euphemism for this place. They cannot be allowed to succeed. Thus a question, do you choose to remain here to fight me? Or do you choose to battle alongside Doom to prevent things from getting worse and to serve the greater good? In other words, Avengers, do you actually want to help people. And it's in that moment when the Avengers begin to start to take a pause here for a second. As Iron Man is like, I hate to say it, but my drones at NYC, they're confirming what he's saying. There is an uprising at the raft. And Storm is like, the impossible city sees it too. The smoke is visible from orbit. And Vision continues. He's like, the villains held there. Purple Man, Typhoid Mary, Carnage's Spawn, all loose in New York all at once. This could get very ugly very fast. And then Carol sees the irony in this. She's like, no, we attack Doom and a huge raft breakout just happens to occur at the same time? Please, he planned this. What's your game, Doom? To show us fighting by your side, tactically supporting you? Well, it's not gonna happen. You don't rule us and you never will. So Doom continues. He's like, you misjudge me, Captain. Fear not. It is a sadly common affliction, but I assure you, Emperor Doom cares only for his world. But Thor is like, nay, Doom cares only for Doom, and Doom does not speak the truth. So in this moment, Carol yells out. She's like, we won't play this game, Victor, and we won't be used for your little PR wins. We built the raft, and we will fix the raft without you. And I'll tell you this right now, this isn't over. But then Doom once again flips the script. He's like, over? Why, Miss Danvers? We are still but in the opening act. And it's in that moment when he snaps. And what that snap does is that it brings the raft, the people who are escaping, directly to the Avengers. And while they're fighting, we hear this report happening here on the news, as it says, a major escape from the ultra high security prison, the Raft, was put down today in New York, as the Avengers, aided by several supervillains, defeated the dangerous criminals. It was such a huge success for these heroes, proving there are still good people in the world. Or rather, it would have been had these self-same heroes not been absent beforehand, overseas on an extrajudicial attack against Emperor Doom, thereby allowing this dangerous near miss of an escape to get as far as it did. While their selfish attack did not harm Doom, it did delay him. Therefore, Doom teleported the Avengers to the Raft himself, giving them the chance to make their own mess right, to manifest his will while he attended to even more pressing matters elsewhere. Even before this latest success, more and more of the skeptics were already coming around to give the guy a chance. And why not, when the world is so clearly improving under him? Take a look at this clip, folks. Then just try telling me you're not impressed. And this is where we transition here over to Sorcerer Supreme Doom, giving another speech with cameras all around him. And he says, one might point out how even while securing the raft, these so-called heroes allied with villains, underscoring how morally compromised they are. One might also address how the world once again nearly tipped into chaos because of the actions of this rogue element. But Doom does neither. For the Avengers did see the error of their ways eventually, and such realizations are always better late than never. Instead, I simply thank them for their service to our world and to Doom. But it's in that moment when we begin to hear the voice of another, and the voice says, the power of the Sorcerer Supreme, and this trifling is what Doom does with it? Become a sniveling politician? The weakness, the craven debility of it. He plays like a child with the power of his title, ignorant of its responsibilities. And this is where we see that it's the voice of Dormammu. And for a moment, it looks like he's right in front of Dr. Doom, but it's a little bit unclear. But he continues on. He's like, which suggests that he may not even be aware of them at all. By the absent horror, yes, the spells Earth's Sorcerer Supreme must maintain, those that protect and secure Earth from the grasp of my dark dimension. They lie in ruin. The ignorance made manifest in the preening human, all who would stand against me. I can now banish as quickly, as easily as thought itself. And for a moment, it looks like he just vanished all the Avengers. And then he continues on. He's like, the weight of eternities is ended. For none but that frail and hollow fool stand against me, claiming Earth for the dark dimension, and with it, the rest of the 8 cosmos. So spake the Lord of Chaos. So spake the dread Dormammu. Now, like every single one word under Doom issue here, we first start off by looking at this like full-on propaganda style info dump that reflects basically the current state of the world right now under the Sorcerer Supreme himself, Victor Von Doom. The media and the data shown here are completely dominated by pro-Doom narratives, and there's this entire sort of like eerie sense that Earth has not only accepted Doom, but that they've also embraced him as well. Stocks are up, things of that nature. But then we get over here to this Latvian press release, and it says, the news that Earth's leaders welcome Doom willingly has left the heroes reeling. Meanwhile, the dread Dormammu, unstoppable Lord of Chaos and Faultine ruler of the Dark Dimension, has discovered a new and remarkable weakness. While the responsibilities of the Sorcerer Supreme include the sacred duty to strengthen certain spells that protect Earth from Dormammu, Doom's tireless altruism has delayed these duties, seeing an opportunity that may never come again. Dormammu draws his plans against a naked, vulnerable Earth and attacks. And after his initial strike removes our planet's heroes from the universe, only Doom stands in the way. Now we know here from the end of issue 3 that Dormammu was going to make his way to Earth. And what Dormammu has done is that he's made sure that he's removed every opposition that could stop him in his onslaught here against Dormammu. The Avengers are currently gone. The Fantastic Four, they're gone. The X-Men, they're gone. Everyone that Dormammu thought might stand against him, they're all gone. They've been banished in a single instant to an isolated and rapidly collapsing pocket dimension. Alpha Flight, the Champions, heroes major and minor alike, even my steed, says Doom. All of them are gone. All, of course, except for Doom himself. Now, Doom's countermeasures here is that he casts 3 spells. The first protects against Dormammu's attacks, and the other 2, they engage. And then all that remains is himself, Dr. Doom. So he says, he's like, Dormammu, you dare to attack my world. You dare to attack Doom. And Dormammu's like, listen, your realm is unguarded. But Doom was like, that ain't true, because I stand right before you. So Dormammu was like, and that is a surprise. It appears you do know how to wield the powers of the Sorcerer Supreme after all, at least when it comes to protecting yourself. You are all that remains, Victor, the only one left. And as Doom goes on the attack, Dormammu says, he's like, I had worried this might be too easy. And Dormammu does get a little cocky. He's like, but seeing you in person doesn't really dissuade me of that thought. So as he gets close, he drapes up Doom and he's like, so what now, Victor? Do you scheme some way to turn me into your ally as you have the others of this world? Or do you come to me sniveling, begging for my mercy? But Doom's like, sorry to tell you, but this Doom, this one's a fake. And what Dormammu didn't know is that the real Doom was behind him, and that caught him off guard. So here comes the real Doom, and as he whacks Dormammu in the face, he says, the real Doom did not come to bargain. Now, Dormammu wasn't really feeling that attack. He's like, a distraction, a cheap, petty illusion. And Doom was like, yeah, but it was more than enough to deceive you. And as Doom continues, he's like, the eye of Agamotto, it's light, destructive to demons. Doctor Strange only ever employed it directly. Like a fool, he never thought to magically bend that light around him over and over, growing it ever stronger in a torrent, a hurricane, before hitting you with light enough to shame the sun. And you can see Dormammu, he felt that one. But then Dormammu was like, listen, I got the trump card. He's like, you call Strange a fool? And yet, childlike, you look on me and believe all you see is all that there is. You didn't really think that I'd come alone, did you? And it's in that moment when he says, demons rise. And when Doom takes a look behind him, he sees Dormammu's reinforcements. And he mentions how he cast spells to seal his demon portal shut, but it had no effect. And he realizes that, yo, this might actually be a challenge. And he says to himself, he's like, I must be stronger. My magic must be stronger. He realizes, he's like, you know, Doom does have his advantages. As he says to himself, Dormammu is complacent, accustomed as he is to fighting Strange. The two of them always battling over and over to a glorified stalemate. He expects me to act like Steven did. A foolish expectation. I am a smarter man, a patently supreme sorcerer. To defeat Dormammu's demons, I need only to use the eye of Agamotto in a way Strange never would, that he never could. And while there are many possibilities, he's like, I choose one, creating a new spell for its light, something unique, unprecedented, and cast it with 2 simple words. And then this man says flame on. And I'm like, bro, you just said something unique and unprecedented. But it is in that moment here where those Dormammu demons, they start to get blasted away. And then he says, then I choose another spell. And this time it's an optic blast. So I'm like, hold on. This man is just using all the different heroes' powers, but that also lays waste to some more of Dormammu's demons. And to be fair, Doom has the advantage right here because Dormammu's on the ground saying, wait, but then Doom does another spell. And this man has the gall to say snakes as he pulls out Agamotto's spell, Wolverine Claws. And he jams them right into Dormammu. But then Doom realizes, he kind of messed up here. As he says to himself, I had an oversight. He mentions how Dormammu wanted him to get close. He wanted his attention on him. And the reason why is so that the demons could steal the eye of Agamotto here from Doom. And this is where Dormammu steps in and says, like all egoists, Victor, you seek glory above all else. And this makes you so endlessly predictable. You and I know 2 things nobody else does. The first is how this truly is all your fault. You allowed Earth's mystical defenses to weaken, but I'll keep your secret because I know your other secret too. You could end this any time that you wanted. It's not too late. You could magically strengthen Earth's defenses in a heartbeat. You could save Earth, rescue all its heroes, and banish me and protect all those people down below. But there is the slight matter of the cost. To do it now, so late, when I am already here, it would mean using up all your magic, necessarily relinquishing your title. You would lose everything. You could do it with a thought, but it is a thought you can never bring yourself to think because it's an admission that Doom is insufficient, lesser, inferior, and yet thus you lose it all anyway, but in a way that is much more painful. I am the Dark Lord of Faltine, and you, Victor, you are just a man. And it's in this moment when Dormammu begins to completely dismantle here Victor Von Doom. But before we go further here, real quick, we just want to say thank you. We see that you guys have been showing up here every single week for the comic book breakdowns that we're doing here at Keepin' It Comic, and it means more than you know. And if you've been enjoying the channel and want to support what we're building here, you can now become a Keepin' It Comic channel member by just hitting the join button below the video. You'll get a badge, you'll stand out in the comments, and then you'll also get many other perks as well, and it helps us grow even more. Or if you would prefer, we also have a link to our Patreon in the description of this video. Either way, you're helping Keepin' It Comic so that we can continue to bring you these videos every single week. A shout out here to Thor's biggest fan who recently joined here on YouTube, and then also shout out here to Jamie and Synchro who are part of our Patreon group as well. We appreciate you, and let's get back to it. So Dormammu here, he begins to rip the armor off of Doom. And then he says, now I take an arm as he breaks it. And then next he says, now a leg. And then he says, finally, Victor, I let my demons feed on you as he throws them into the ocean or the water, wherever. You get the point. And Dormammu, being pleased with himself, is like, a decent realm. But then Doom, under the water, as he's being fed on here by these demons, he's like, I have not lost. I have not lost. I have minutes of breath in my lungs, minutes. I have a good arm, a good leg, and I've never needed the eye of Agamotto to ensure that Doom's will be done. And it's in that moment here where Doom bursts out of the water and he screams, Dormammu! But then Dormammu says, he's like, you think yourself pernicious, Victor? Well, you're just stubborn, a dead man who simply hasn't realized it yet. So then Dormammu charges in. He's like, all right, let me give you that push that you need across the finish line. And you can see here, the bones are continuing to crack on Doom. And he grabs Doom here, Dormammu does, by the neck. And he says, Dr. Doom, this is where your story ends. But Doom still got a little bit of fight in him. He says, the second of my 3 spells, cast when Dormammu first attacked, activates at my mental command. a time spell to freeze everyone but Doom for a single minute. One last chance to defy death. I'm held in Dormammu's magic. In the moment time resumes, he is going to destroy me. I've earned seconds to figure out how to prevent it. My armor, gone. The eye, forgotten on the bed of the East River beneath me. My spells, exhausted. All I have is my mask, what remains of my cloak, and my will. I'm held tight in Dormammu's spell. Nothing moves, nothing budges. I can't even breathe. No. I try to move my broken limbs, forcing them despite the shards of my broken bones cutting at my muscles. Nothing. And for a moment, I permit myself to consider that I've lost. Doom gives himself but the smallest taste of defeat, and my entire soul rejects it. It is antithetical to every cell of my being. It is not Doom. I direct the totality of my will toward my shattered arms, and a single finger moves, an almost imperceptible amount. The pain is indescribable beyond the physical. Lesser men would do anything, promise anything, for only a chance to never feel this way again. But Doom is not a lesser man. I have lost everything true, but Doom is not the mask. Doom is not the armor. Doom is not the magic, and Doom is not the name. Doom is me. I am Doom, and Doom never fails. And that is just enough here to knock Dormammu back. As Doom continues, he's like, other men would have been exhausted, ruined. Doom is merely determined. So then Dormammu's like, temporal magic? Cheap? And it will only work once. But then in that moment, that final plan of Doom begins to come to fruition. The final of his 3 spells, and the one that he's been fighting for, buying time for ever since. The instant Earth's self-proclaimed heroes were taken to that pocket dimension, he used the identical magic to send his Doombot there as well. There, they were laboring with the other heroes to escape. Because while Dormammu is power manifest, he has never realized that with the greatest power, there must also come the greatest weakness. Dormammu is the end of everything, and when facing such an oblivion, heroes will always choose the greater good. And what's the greater good in this moment? Oh man, it's Doom. As he continues, he's like, they will choose to fight for this world. They will choose to save it. And thus, Earth's heroes choose Doom. And it's in this moment, guys, where we see all the heroes come through as Captain America says, Avengers, assemble! And that is the story for now. So when we pick back up on things here, we hear Doom telling us the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, each of them, all of them, now fight for Doom as he yells out, attack! Now, in the eyes of the public here, what they saw was the attack here of Dormammu, and the only one left to save them here was Doom. So just as Doom has orchestrated, his likeness and his popularity here has risen significantly. Now, in the heat of battle, he tells Scarlet Witch, he's like, Dormammu's demons, Scarlet Witch, seal off his portals before he can use them. And Scarlet Witch is looking at Carol like, you sure about this? And she says, do it. But then Doom warns her. He's like, carefully, Wanda, do not aim your magics at his portals. You must cut off Dormammu's very connection to his dimension. Now, Scarlet Witch is asking some questions here. She's like, that's dark magic. It's not going to work. But Doom's like, it will. Now, naturally, Scarlet Witch is like, I don't really trust you. I think this is a trick. And he assures her. He's like, this is no trick, Wanda. I swear to you, on the soul of my mother. And you know, Doom don't ever say that. He's like, Doom fights for Earth. So it's in that moment here where Scarlet Witch, she goes on to sever Dormammu's connection. And Dormammu is trying to figure things out. He's like, why are you guys aligning yourself with Doom? To which Cap replies, he's like, we aren't working for Doom, Dormammu, we're working for us. And Iron Man says, he's like, we just happen to have a single aligned interest right now, which is defeating you. To which the fact that they're following Doom's orders, Dormammu just finds it all pathetic. But it's in that moment here, while he's distracted and talking, here comes Invisible Woman with an invisible punch. It tells Dormammu to shut it. Now, meanwhile, Doom is like, they attack Dormammu with everything they've got. They attack him with prejudice. They keep him busy. time enough for me to recover the eye of Agamotto and use its power. And you can see here that Doom, he's starting to unbreak his bones a little bit here with his magic, as he says to restore his own. And in that moment here, Doom yells out, Dormammu! Doom demands you kneel. And for Dormammu, kneel he does. As Doom continues on, he's like, magic to hold my bones together, even as their raw edges cut across my nerve endings. Willpower to acknowledge the screaming agony of my body, to look it dead in the eye, and then to ignore it. And the final ingredient, one found in an abundance, when I look on Dormammu and see what he has tried to do to my world, to me, hate enough to fuel them both. And then he begins to say, Doom does, he's like, by the chains of Krakan, by the mystic moons of Munapur, by the ceaseless citadel of Latveria, Doom bids thee away. And just like that, Dormammu was gone. So the Avengers begin to ask a question like, is he? To which Doom is like, no, not dead, Captain Marvel, but he is neutralized. I have banished him back to his meager dimension, held there in eternal spells of my own design. Or Scarlet Witch is like, that's impossible. Forever magic can't be done. They have to be, but then Doom cuts her off. He's like, anchored to an event here on Earth. That is correct, Wanda. And that is precisely what I have accomplished. The spells binding Dormammu are, as decreed, tied to earthly circumstances. And this is where Doom lets them know that he has full control, as he says, for their end only comes when Doom's rule of Earth does, which is why he says it will remain eternal. And when the aftermath here, the news reports discuss how when Earth champions had all disappeared, that the planet Earth was left undefended. And Doom was the only one that was left to face Dormammu alone. And they acknowledge seeing here now how all Earth's heroes are working alongside of Doom, and how they kind of find it remarkable. One even says, call me an optimist, but I think it portends a further cooperation, finally. While another one says, we can't forget that Dormammu's banishment will last as long as Doom's rule does. Great motivation for keeping Doom in power, as if we needed it. While one says only Doom can save you, it isn't just a slogan now, it's the way forward. And that was proven today. He saved our world from desolation, from war, from an Omega level threat, and way more permanently than has ever been achieved before. I'm not afraid to say it, it's appreciated. This is a monumental moment here because for the very first time since the beginning here of One World Under Doom, this is the first time that Earth's heroes have fought alongside Doom. So now everyone's thinking, we are now truly a united world. But then when we jump back here to the heroes, because now they're left with the aftermath of cleaning up all this mess. We see here where Iron Man removes the rubble to save Frank Cooper. Frank Cooper here of the custodial services of the UN, headquarters here for Doom. And he mentions how we put him in some kind of protective spell. And as we go along here, we continue to find out that everyone survived that was in that building simply because Doom put everyone there in a protective spell as well. All that was left is for the heroes to remove all the rubble, to find all the civilians free. But then Brain Drain comes in here and he's saying something to Captain Marvel. He's like, there's a concept I am struggling to reconcile. And he mentions how Doom really did save everyone in this building. The instant Dormammu first attacked the United Nations, he protected them all. I am uncertain what his angle is. To which Scarecrow's like, it's the same that it's been since the very start of this. He's trying to get people to like him. He's presented himself as a hero. And honestly, it's not like he's been failing at it at all. He's given the world peace, healthcare, education, food, security. And then Brain Drain's like, yeah, you know, and also the trains run on time too. But this is where sort of kind of like the reasoning between the Avengers begins here, because Doreen's like, come on, man, like obviously I'm not arguing for what Doom's doing. I'm simply saying that he's getting results that people like, and it'll be naive to ignore them if we can see them. So that it says everyone else can see them too. And the Invisible Woman comes in and says, she's like, I gotta say, never has my code name felt more appropriate. To which Iron Man replies, he's like, well, Invisible Woman, by my count, that's the last of the victims. And then they do their final check to remove all the rubble, to indeed see that everyone so far has been saved. 0 casualties. But then Invisible Woman continues on. She's like, a surprise attack and demonically imploded UN headquarters and not a single injury or fatality. I hate to say it, but it's impressive. To which Iron Man said, he's like, so what now? We keep letting Doom do what he wants and play cleanup for him? Because that's not what I spent 4 years at Iron Man College for. But then Thor comes on in and says, he's like, I would put a question to thee, friends, and I would ask that thee consider it carefully. Heroes, is it not possible that Doom truly is thy best choice for Midgard? Which of course is absolutely jarring, right? By the way, if you've been enjoying the stories here that we've been bringing to life each and every single week, consider becoming a part of the crew here by hitting that join button to become a Keepin' It Comic channel member. Alternatively, you can also become a Patreon member as well. The link for that is going to be down below in the description. It's more than just support. It's joining a movement here of comic fans who want to keep this channel alive. We appreciate you, and let's get back to it. So Iron Man is questioning Thor. He's like, you can't let yourself fall into this trap, man. This is exactly what he wants. So Thor is like, I asked thee to consider it carefully, Iron Man. So Iron Man's like, okay, I mean, I will. But then Thor cuts him off. He's like, then do so. I pray thee listen. Friends, I am of Asgard, where the Allfather is both king and protector of all 10 realms. Odin demanded respect from mortals and gods alike, and he received it. The Allfather, my father, earned it. Under his rule, each of the 10 realms was saved from all manner of calamity, disaster, and ruin across timeless aeons. Of course, Odin was not perfect. None of us are. And none know this better than myself, now that I have succeeded him as king. But more often than not, he was the best of us. More often than not, he was all that stood between us and apocalypse. My father was a great king and a great man. He made Asgard and all other realms what they art. And I have been struggling mightily with why we art, so certain a system which hath served every other realm of the world tree so well since the time immemorial would here simply fail to work. I remind thee, I am not of Midgard, and this is not my land. But Thor does not shy his eyes away from truth. Those eyes tell me that since Doom claimed his throne, Midgard hath been safe, secure, and prosperous. They tell me, Avengers, that Doom hath done more to improve this realm in weeks than we have in years. So Iron Man chimes in, he's like, okay, buddy, I promised you I'd consider it. And I'm doing so now. Considering, and I'm done. Thor, are you out of your mind? But even Carol chimes in. She's like, Tony, I hate to say it, but he's not entirely wrong. Earth is still here today because of what Doom did. But Iron Man's like, for all we know, Doom set up the whole thing. Maybe he let Dormammu in just so he could defeat him. But then Carol's like, and then break every bone in his body in the process? To which Iron Man's like, those limbs are already healing inside of his armor, probably magically. Maybe they weren't even really broken. I don't know. To which Carol's like, dude, you sound like a conspiracy theorist. And he's like, you all sound like cult members. He's Dr. Doom. His literal last name is Doom. I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm kind of with Tony on this one. And Squirrel Girl is too. She's like, I'm with Tony. Doom wants us to question ourselves, to feel like we're the baddies here, but we're not. And Iron Man's like, Doom is a master manipulator. He's arranged events to make us feel like this, to have us fighting each other. But then Thor once again steps in and he's like, oh, verily. And he accomplished this master manipulation. How again? Oh yes, that was it. By saving us in all other 9 realms from Dormammu. I, for one, would appreciate further machinations, such as these. The work of heroism would be made much simpler. To which he says, where am I wrong, Lady Doreen? What hath I missed? To which she responds, she's like, you missed, I don't know, freedom? Earth is under an emperor. To which Thor says, and Asgard is under its king, just as countless others of thy Midgardian nations are. We quibble semantics, Lady Green. Doom is at his highest, and he hath raised Midgard up with him. We are all happily rid of Dormammu. Things go well. And our victory is so complete that even death herself could not claim a soul today, from the mighty Thor to the mighty Frank from custodial surfaces. I say thee, as his eyes begins to glow. We cannot ignore that simply because we do not like the man. But then in that moment, someone says, you don't have to. And it's the voice here of Maria Hill. And she says, hey, Sue, Tony, Carol, and everyone else. I'm Maria Hill, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., what's left of it. I'm here because I know why you keep losing and why Doom keeps winning. He's hiding something, and it's big. We know where it is, and we know how to get to it, but it's going to take all of us. Now, as usual here, we start off with some good old propaganda. Doom's popularity is rising fast. There's an editorial that freely admits that only Doom can save you, which is a slogan here that's now being repeated across the entire world. The name Victor has now made it into the top 10 baby names for boys this month. And more surprisingly, by the way, it's also cracked the top 50 for girls. Stocks are also up. Headlines are buzzing about Doom's recent team up here with the superheroes to stop Dormammu, and now 50% of the population agrees that what Emperor Doom is doing is good. Now, coming out of the Latverian press office here is this message that states, after defeating Dormammu with the help of Earth's heroes and banishing him forever, Doom's grip on the world has become even more secure. Some heroes are questioning themselves. Could Doom be right for the world? Are they the bad guys here? But even as they learn to accept the glorious truth, with the surprise arrival of Maria Hill, the heroes once again backslide into what they call hope. They have repeatedly tried to stop Emperor Doom, and they have lost every single time. What could possibly be different now? Which now brings us here to this next major event, Reed Richards versus Emperor Doom. Now, the headline here states that Reed Richards has publicly challenged Emperor Doom to a live debate, questioning Doom's right to rule, and he frames it as a contest of knowledge and reason, daring Doom to prove his legitimacy through logic and truth. Now, Doom accepts the challenge, but not without, of course, shabbing at Reed Richards' ego here, calling the idea of Reed being the smartest man in the world laughable. Now, this here is going to be broadcasted live right on the steps here of the Baxter building, and it's going to be picked up here by 616 TV. Now, before things kick off here, Reed wants to set the stakes, to which Doom responds like, yo, the terms of this discussion have already been agreed to, Richards. You cannot wiggle off the hook now. But that's not necessarily what Reed meant, because Reed proceeds to say, he's like, how can we argue for the future of our world if that world won't change? Unless that is, you're afraid that you will lose. So essentially what Reed is saying here is that if we find out that what you're doing is wrong, then you have to give up the mantle here as emperor. So of course, you know, Doom picking up what Reed Richards is putting down here, he says, he's like, behold, citizens, Mr. Fantastic. See how clumsily he attempts manipulation. See how transparently he tries to get what he wants. And see too how Doom is unafraid. For I do not bargain for what is already mine. And yet Doom not only accepts your stakes, Richards, Doom raises them. I want only what is best for my world. And if you are what is best, Richards, then so be it. Should you win this discussion, old friend, Doom will step down. Now, let us proceed. Let us, you and I, decide the fate of our world. And I won't lie to you, I have no idea who Doom's stylist was here, but why this man look like a therapist? That's about to ask the question, tell me about the time that you failed the world. Well, listen, let's continue. So it's mentioned here, right, that in the front of the planet, Reed and Doom discuss, they dispute, and then they contest. Both men command logic, but Doom can operate on an emotional plane, an interpersonal plane that Reed does not have easy access to. Reed and Doom can both win minds, but only Doom can win hearts. And so, Reed deploys his only advantage given to him by Maria Hill. Now let's jump back to that for a second here, because remember at the very end here of issue number 5, after the heroes had cleaned up Dormammu's mess, there was a big dispute that was led by Iron Man and Thor here. Now Thor was essentially saying that maybe Doom is right. Maybe him being like a king to this world is actually good, considering how much the world has improved so far. To which Tony was like, hell nah. His literal name is Doom, which was by far one of the funniest things from last issue. Oh my goodness. But after that little spat, here comes in Maria Hill, and she tells the group that Doom has been hiding something, which of course Doom is typically always hiding something. And she says it's big and she knows where it is and she knows how to get it. So basically this debate between Doom and Reed, it's really just a distraction and part of the plan, but let's continue on. So Reed brings in here the issue of Blood Hunt. He was like, I have persuasive evidence here, Victor, that the events of the Blood Hunt, the very events I will remind our audience that led you both to the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme and of Emperor, could have been prevented. Because as we remember here, back in the Blood Hunt series, Doom knew that it would happen. And as a result, Doom was also prepared to be able to reverse it or to stop it when it happened as well, which is basically what Reed is pointing out here. He was like, you let it happen. Now, for a moment here, Rita's like, okay, he knows that this is a hit, but at the same time, something was a little bit off here because Doom was 100% not flustered. And it's even mentioned here that although Reed can't tell, he has this sinking sensation that Doom is actually smiling under his mask. And here's the reason why, because then Doom says, he's like, on December 7th, 1941, years before the Pas Victory. Yes, I know that's not how you pronounce it. It just sounds more elegant when I say it that way. All right, let's move on. But he mentions it, he's like, Japan struck America at Pearl Harbor. And the English leader Churchill, a man repeatedly considered the greatest prime minister in British history, and one, if not the greatest Britain of all time, knew this attack was coming. Churchill faced a choice: warn the Americans and prevent the attack, thus prolonging the war indefinitely, or let events proceed, thereby drawing America into the conflict and hastening the fall of Hitler forever. His decision to keep it secret came too late for many of my people, already killed under the genocidal policies of Nazism. But it would lead to others, orders of magnitude more, including my family surviving the war. It was an impossible choice, but Churchill didn't shy from it. He made it, and then he stood by it. But to Reed, he was like, dude, no, that was never proven. There's no evidence. And even now, decades after the fact, that the Allies, but then Doom cuts him off. He's like, bro, nor has all the evidence been shared, Richards, and much of it has also been destroyed. But you see, Doom does not destroy his past, nor does he hide from its consequences. Doom stands before you unapologetic for the impossible choice that he made for your greater good. That is what leaders do, and it is what has saved us all. Now, after all that, Reed knows this for sure. He's like, first of all, that whatever Doom just said is an emotional appeal. It's unsupported and unsupportable, blurring facts and feelings together. But at the same time, Reed also knows this. He's like, yeah, I'm also losing. Now, simultaneously, we finally catch up with what the rest of the team has been doing because we jump back to outside of Latveria. Now, you might remember this here, but the team had already tried once before to break into the magical dome that is protecting Latveria at the moment. And Vision is a little skeptical about this because he's wondering, he's like, yo, why would this kind of be any different, right? So Maria explains, she's like, it's because the last time that you attacked it with brute force. Now, this time we're using shield intelligence, especially while Doom is currently distracted elsewhere. So she's identified here a specific weak spot in the dome. So now the team is locked in on that and they're firing, waiting for the moment here where there's a small opening. And as they fire off, that exact moment comes. And Maria Hill, she sends in Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, and Invisible Woman right into that opening. So now the hunt is on to find out exactly what has been going on in Latveria. So back on the inside here, Reed is starting to press back here on Doom. And he's pressing him on the fact that he's like, you keep on saying that nobody else can rule this world but you, but what evidence is there to support that? To which Doom is like, evidence? You speak to me of evidence? And this is when he begins to go through a slew of all the things that our past heroes have done. He's like, Tony Stark's arc reactor technology could have given the world energy, clean, safe, and boundless. But but instead he encases it deep within a weapon he wraps around himself, ensuring that he's the only one who may wield it. Hank Pym, this dude could have ended hunger in a week, an afternoon, yet your friend chose only to enlarge himself, which sounded really weird for a second, but let's move on. Then he talks about the Black Panther and how his nation hoards wondrous gifts, insisting that all beyond his jealousy guarded borders are unready for this bounty. Stormy mentions could have consigned droughts, floods, and heat waves to history, yet she chose not to. Instead, she helped terraform Mars and kept that world for herself. Your Avengers, of which she is now a member, a leader, they float above us all in a private space station, while the rest of us on Earth, they crawl and beg. And your mutant associates cure death, yet they never shared this cure. It was and remains an incalculable act of hate. These petty beings of endless avarice, Richards calls them allies. He calls them friend. And had they been permitted to ruin our world, they would have then simply voyaged into a sea of parallel universes, leaving us to clean up their mess. Because unlike them, we have no chance of escape. See, Emperor Doom is a man of the people, you see, guys? Well, let's continue. And then he begins to turn here and talk about Mr. Fantastic. He's like, and you, Mr. Fantastic, the smartest man in the world after Doom, of course. And what do you do with your intellect? You share nothing, you publish nothing, you invent wonders and hoard them within the smallest group of all, your own family. And Doom wanted to make sure that you saw his eyes when he said this. He's like, you Richards, you are the greatest disappointment of them all. Do not speak to me of history. I have studied it, understanding it, as only those who have suffered under great men can. You gained your power under the world as it was, and thus have tremendous self-interest in keeping it exactly the same. Only Doom, vilified and attacked by you and your allies, could change things, because only Doom had nothing to lose. You would never permit him to gain it. Your greed, your thundering hubris, which is jarring that Doom is talking about someone's hubris, but I digress. He's like, ensured that only Doom could save the world. You created the one thing that could finally defeat you. Doom. Richards only Doom. Now, back on the inside here of Latveria, the Fab Three here have made themselves invisible, inaudible, and also hidden from any magical vision Doom's employed. But Scarlet Witch and the rest of them, they're feeling that something is off on the inside. And then Black Widow starts to realize something. She's like, this is more than just a feeling. As she points to this couple that is walking, she said that's the third time that that couple has walked that exact route. They're going in circles. But Scarlet Witch points out, she's like, it doesn't feel like magic. To which Invisible Woman is like, it's not. I think it's hard light. If I bend ambient light to hit it with equal and opposite wavelengths, I should be able to cancel it out. And it's in that moment when she does that and they disappear, as in fact, everyone in Latveria disappears in that moment. And that is when they turn their gaze here over to this building, because that looks to be the heart of it. Now the question is asked, Wanda, can you get us through those defensive spells? To which she's like, yeah, I can. But then she notices something else. She's like, this is Sorcerer Supreme magic cast by Dr. Doom. It's powerful though beyond anything that I've seen, but there's nothing fighting me. And that means one thing, these spells aren't built to keep people out. They're built to keep people in. So with that, Wanda uses her magic and then she begins to carve through it. So Black Widow, she remotes in, she tells Maria and the team what's been going on. And it looks like it's been months since the town in Latveria has been abandoned. But something is still perplexing to them. Because even with the months that Doom was hiding, they don't understand how Doom could have built this so quickly. This entire building on the inside, everything is pulsing with this magic. So when Wanda's asked if she can destroy, she says, I don't even know. This is time magic, chaos magic, even blood magic, and elemental spells too, all of them at levels that shouldn't even be possible. We're moving through magic that is stacked 9 layers deep. But then as Wanda keeps talking, nothing could have prepared her quite exactly for what they saw next. Because what we see here is millions of people. As Wanda says, she's like, 1 million souls, 1 million futures, their very lifetime themselves harvested by these machines. This is death. This is murder. This is monstrous. All these people here are who Doom has trapped inside of his very own nation. So with that, and we'll get more of an explanation of this as we continue to move further. With that, what Black Widow does is that she then sends the visuals here over to Reed. And in the middle of their debate, Reed is like, I apologize, but I gotta interrupt because I have something I believe the world deserves to see. And as he shows him, he continues on by saying, he's like, this is the first footage from inside of Latveria anyone has seen in months. We know why Victor sealed it off. He seeks only to hide his crimes. And he shows it and he's like, these people are being tortured. And Doom, he tries to dash after Reed here. He's like, you will give me the holographic projector. To which Reed's like, hell no, I'm not. And as more people are being shown on the screen over and over again, Doom tries to make it sound good. He's like, know this, citizens of Doom, these are volunteers, a true loyalists who agreed to sacrifice themselves for the good of everyone else. They are heroes, men and women. But Reed's like, bro, we are looking at children, hunched over, sad. He's like, dude, you're robbing every one of your citizens of their life force, their future, and you are giving it to yourself. This is how your magic became so powerful. This is how you've been fueling every one of the spells that you've cast. Victor, you're sacrificing your own people at the altar of yourself. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Doom has officially lost his flipping mind because he doesn't even apologize for it. He's like, yes, I am, Reed, and I would sacrifice 1 million more if I had to. These glories cannot be achieved otherwise, you oblivious fool. There is a cost to greatness, Richards, and it must be paid by someone, not himself, of course. The bargain is fair. It gives us our peace, our wealth. We are safe and we are happy. To which Rita's like, at the expense of the lives of everyone else? To which Doom just simply says as he grabs Reed's face and you can see him in anguish. He's like, the means are more than justified by the ends. And did he just peel off a piece of Reed's head just now? Oh my goodness. So then Reed says in this moment, he's like, if these horrors are so justified, then why, Victor, do you hide them? And that is when Doom then turns around as he realizes that the people are mortified by what's going on. And then he turns off the signal where everyone else can watch. So what that does here is that it leads to some fallout here with some of his believers. Now, the loud ones who are against him here, like J. Jonah Jameson, well, they've been dealt with here by Doom, of course, or I should say Doom bots. And then there are others who still believe in him anyways, because one was just like, listen, I don't know anyone from Latveria anyway, so it seems fine to me, while some still believe that, listen, like Doom said, that they volunteered for this, so it seems to be all good. So what ensues here from this is that we start to see these attacks here against Doom. Now, initially, we see armies, and Doom laid waste to these armies here. You can actually see one of the battles where there are just skeletons lying on the ground. Because after all now, no one defies Doom and gets away with it. So after that plan has failed, remember that Maria Hill here had a plan. Now, it's not entirely clear what exactly that plan is, but being that Doom is distracted, she sees this as an opportunity here for her to enact that plan. So what she does here is that she gathers all the troops, and I mean all the troops. We got the Fantastic Four, and yeah, Reed is somewhat okay right now, minus of course an eye. We got the X-Men, we got the Avengers, and yes, a Beta Ray Bill is here now because remember, no one remembers who Thor is anymore due to the events that happened here at the end of Immortal Thor. And then we see here the villains that were also working with them as well. So what they do here is that they go to attack Doom again, but this time it's a little bit different. Now, as before, it is now being broadcasted live on TV. And what we see here is a narration from Valeria Richards. As she mentions, she's like, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men. I'm Valeria Richards. And as I watch, as the world watches, each of them, all of them now come for my godfather. And I gotta say, I just love how ridiculous the Doom dinosaur continues to look. I love it. But then Valeria continues. She's like, months ago, he came to me to justify what he was doing. And he told me that he sought glory. But then she's like, that glory is now dead. All that is left is power and control. And as I watch Doom take the ruins of his castle, using them first as missiles and then to crush the heroes, I can see that his plans have changed. And here we see the Fantastic Four family, the rest of the Fantastic Four family, watching from the family farm there in Arizona. So in this next moment here, what we see are the heroes attack Doom. But what Doom was not prepared for was that thing that I said that was a little bit different. Because while the team here was going on a frontal attack, well, Reed Richards, he was doing an attack from a different dimension. Because in this next moment here, what we see is that now Doom has been flung into the astral plane. I can't believe I just said flung. But let's move on. And what he does up here, Reed is like, greetings, Victor. And Doom is just like flabbergasted. He's like, no, it's not him. He could never stretch his thinking enough to, but he has. And Doom continues, he's like, the world's oldest, stupidest dog has finally learned a new trick. So then Reed is like, I was thinking that we might have ourselves another chat. He's like, I had hoped that revealing your true face to the world would lead you to step down, Victor, but I was wrong. And so this is plan B. Since the started, you've been winning simply because you've been more powerful every step of the way. You've been wielding a weapon I don't understand. Magic, time magic, dark magic, Sorcerer Supreme magic. But I've been studying it, building up a table of its repeatable properties. It's periodic, did you know? I have a real problem with magic, but I'm great at science. I've been building a new science, Victor. And you know what my favorite part of science is? It's that anyone can wield it. You don't need to be special or chosen. You don't even need to think that you're a god. You simply need to put in the work. And that's what I've been doing since you started this whole nightmare. I've been learning, harnessing. And so here I am on the astral plane, having studied how you defeated Dormammu. I know I can still stop this. I know I can still fix this. So let us proceed, Sorcerer Supreme versus the Scientist Supreme. And I gotta say, while this moment is kind of dope, I can only just keep on thinking to myself, like, I hope that AIM didn't already patent this, because otherwise this man might be sued. But listen, let's move on. So it's here where Reed is like, let us, you and I, decide the fate of our world. And then we see Reed doing kind of the same thing, right, that Doom had already done. He pulls out the little magic or Scientist Supreme Wolverine claws. He says, flame on. But Doom is like, come on, man. Ridiculous, laughable, gormless. He is a clown, clumsily playing at godhood. Even as he attacks, he tries to talk to me, debate me, distract me. I ignore it all. Even so, for a man of Richard's staggering limitations, just being here on the astral plane is a remarkable achievement. Remarkable in the same way an animal driving a vehicle is remarkable. The insults. But it is nowhere near enough. He's already told me his weakness without even realizing it. Dormammu. He's attacking me with the spells that I invented, thinking that they might somehow overwhelm. He is a child, dressed in his emperor's clothes. He is a forger and a thief and a clumsy, entitled, ambitious pretender. He is Uriah Heep, ripped from the pages of Dickens. And as we grapple, his eyes seem to take on every shade of color that could make eyes ugly. I correct him for his hubris against his emperor. I move him into an infinitely iterated fractal dimension where every cell of his body is stretched farther and farther. So far, in fact, that they can no longer be traditionally measured. And finally, I remove us both from the astral plane, forever sealing it from him. The two of us return to Latveria, to the battlefield. And as Reed is pleading, Victor, please, Doom continues. He's like, he begs for mercy. Richards begs for my mercy. But to the victor belongs the spoils. As he says, you won't die, Richards. I promise nothing more. Now, in this moment here, we jump back to Valeria Richards with the rest of the family. And she can't just sit on the sidelines while she does nothing. So she tells Franklin Richards about this plan that she has. So Valeria comes up with this plan here, which is basically to try to communicate with him or get his attention through Morse code. And she does this here by creating a hypersonic signal transmitter that is geared to resonate here with his armor. So when she does her thing, tick, 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 tack, tick, tack, tick, tack, tack, tack. Listen, I tried. Initially, nothing happens at first until it does. And then she just gets transported away. And when she gets on the other side, who does she see? The Godfather Doom, who of course is ever so impressed. And he's like, you got my attention. I wonder, Valeria, what you will do with it. So Valeria asked a question. She's like, this mindscape, Sorcerer Supreme magic, I take it. To which Doom was like, yeah, some of it. The rest is me. So she asked a question. She's like, you're still fighting them, mom and dad and the rest? And he's like, yeah, in the astral plane. Your father proved to be slightly, well, surprising, I suppose, is the right word, irritating perhaps. So Valeria thanks Doom for allowing her father to continue to live. To which Doom was like, I did it for you, Valeria. I did it for you. But he continues, he's like, even as we speak right now, my Doombots are putting down other uprisings throughout the world. Combined with your father's attack on the astral plane and the ongoing battle in Latveria simultaneously, marshaling all fronts is significant. So, meaning our time here must be short. But even when the world comes to Castle Doomstadt, intent on destroying me, Doom always has time for his goddaughter. And he mentions, it's like, you remain the only one who holds Doom's favor, Doom's respect, and Doom's love. But I repeat myself, what do you want, Valeria Richards? So she continues on. She's like, all of this you said, this was for glory, but it's not anymore. Now it's just what? To prove that you weren't wrong? To prove that you're still the best of us? Where does this end? And please, Uncle Doom, I want you to stop. But he's like, I know that's what you want at the present, but let me tell you where this ends, Valeria. It ends in victory. Everything has a cost, everything, and everything truly great costs more. But she continues to make her point. She's like, when this began, you were trying to manufacture consent to win hearts and minds and moral rights from the governed. But this isn't that. This is coercion. They'll never accept it. To which he's like, they will. The language you speak, the very language that you think in, was coerced onto your ancestors once. Now you call it your mother tongue. It takes time, Valeria. That's all. But Valeria's like, it's not going to work. You can't hold an entire population by force. To which his response is like, the rhetorical you can't. That's true, but Doom can. Doom will ensure that what happens today happens forever. And you forget that Doom is not without his supporters. It is only a violent minority who threaten the safety, security, and the prosperity of everyone else. Watch, Valeria, and I will prove it to you. Be well, and we will speak soon. And just like that, he sends her back. And just to make sure that Valeria can't contact him again, he adjusts his armor so that it will no longer resonate with her signals. Now back here in Latveria on the battlefield. And now it's here where we know that the team finds out that, of course, that whatever Mr. Fantastic tried to do, that thing did not work. In the meantime, though, what they've managed to do is to take down Doom's dinosaur. They know that Reed is still alive, but he is not in good shape. We also find out here from Maria that currently right now that Doom is being attacked by the X-Men in mass, and that they're using power combinations that they haven't seen since Krakoa. But she knows that in order for them to be able to win, that they have to hit Doom with something else. So she calls out to Squirrel Girl. She's like, hey, you gotta do Maneuver 99. And as for the Invisible Woman and Iron Man, you're on Maneuver 110. So when we pick up here on Invisible Woman and Iron Man, what we see here is this massive infernal flame here that is engulfed or seemingly engulfing Dr. Doom. And it's mentioned here, Johnny mentions how it's a fire hurricane, courtesy of Storm. She brings the weather and he brings the fire. And how they've got Doom inside a city-sized rock tumbler at 2,000 degrees. So here, Invisible Woman mentions Maneuver 110, and she calls out to Aurora. She's like, I bend all the energy Tony can produce in an infinite loop, then hit Doom with all of it at once. Cyclops, if you care to join. And of course, Cyclops is like, yeah, I'm down with pleasure. And Storm was like, just do the thing, because I don't know how long this hurricane will last, but for the moment, I can hold him. So while Invisible Woman tries to do her thing, So on another front here, remember, Doom is being attacked on all fronts here. So he mentions in this moment, he's like, my armor is immune to Iceman's temperature manipulation. So he falls back to attacking me indirectly with airborne ice, cooled nearly to absolute zero. And the thing, Dr. Hank Beast McCoy, as always, living up to his nom de plume. But he can think of nothing more effective to do than to throw rocks at their betters. And of course, now comes Dr. Storm, bending her allies' energy. But I am Sorcerer Supreme. I am Emperor of Earth. Even a week's worth of their powers hitting me in a femtosecond would be insufficient. It is all so petty, so cheap, so intolerable. I have perhaps permitted mutants their powers for too long. It seems those who stand against me have forgotten something. Anything an X gene expresses can be unexpressed by one with mastery supreme of chaos magic. So right then and there, the Sorcerer Supreme Emperor Doom knocks Storm out of the sky. And as Johnny catches her, she says, she's like, my connection to the world, my powers, they're gone. And when we look on the ground, we see Iceman's powers dissipating. We see Beast, his powers dissipating. And then Doom with his cocky ass comes down and he's like, you claim that you could hold me for a moment, Aurora Monroe. That moment appears to have passed. And as Doom continues to walk, Sue was like, you monster. And Emperor Doom is like, nah, not monster, Dr. Storm, Emperor. And then he snaps and he's like, and the next time that we meet, you will address me as such. Like, this jerk. It's one thing to knock Storm out of the sky, but then to also then say, nah, you can call me Dr. Storm now. But you know, our Emperor Doom here is ever so merciful, right? Because he's like, what I have done to you mutants is temporary, unlike what the Scarlet Witch once did. The savagery. When you leave this battlefield, your powers will return, where they will then be joined. I trust by the knowledge of that they only exist at Doom's pleasure. And then he snaps again. And he's like, the powerless X-Men cannot prevent their forced retreat. Already I am winning. And then there's her. And what we see here is Squirrel Girl grabbing onto Emperor Doom's legs. And Doom's like, Doreen Green, the unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Listen, don't mess with Squirrel Girl now. She's taking out some powerful foes here. And he's like, a world's army has fallen against me, and you expect your attack alone to succeed? Are you a fool? But then Squirrel Girl is like, nah, fam, I got Maneuver 99. That's the one where I'm the big old distraction from what's going on behind you right now. And when we look and we see, first and foremost, Reed Richards look ugly. Like, Doom did a number on him. But here he has one last thing to do. He's like the mighty aspirants of the first firmament. And then we see this power emit from him. As Doom mentions how I left Richards alive, barely. He should be unable to fight, unable to attempt to combine his science and sorcery, but he's doing it. And then I see it. Every hero who can produce energy does so. And Susan bends it all towards the shattered hammer, Stormbreaker. And Richards is magically imbuing all of their abilities into a single item. It is unprecedented. In this next shot, love how this looks right here, because we see the thing that picks up Stormbreaker. As he says, he's like, well, would you look at that? Turns out Aunt Petunia's favorite blushing blue-eyed nephew is worthy after all. Love it. This is for messing with me and with my family, Vic. And I know you know what time it is. And as he charges in and hits Emperor Doom right on, Krakoom! We see Emperor Doom flying. And in the aftermath here, Iron Man's like, did we? And Sue's like, nah. And at this point, man, Doom has had it. He's like, you come at me with all the strength, trickery, and hope that you can muster, naively expecting them to carry the day, but they won't. Heroes, they never could. For Doom answers you with his will. This is it. My ultimate victory, and to ensure it stands eternal against magic, against time, travel against trickery of all kinds, I do what I have always planned to do, and I transform this moment, forging it into a fixed point in time. What has happened will now always happen. It will not, cannot be changed. I bend time, bend causality itself to forever and indelibly inscribe my eternal achievement onto the very fabric of the cosmos. And then I use my assailants' own innovation against them. All my magics, all my powers, I feed into my armor. None but Doom could ever keep them in check. But of course, I don't want them to hold. I cease to even make the attempt, and my armor explodes into millions of magic-infused shards that saturate the battlefield. It turns a loss into a draw, into a win. It is everything I have, and it is spectacular. Before the eyes and cameras of a planet, I defeat everyone. Every shard finds a target with power enough to bring these enhanced heroes to the edge of death, but to just barely and painfully survive. They tear through their armor, through their flesh, through their bones. I've never been more magnificent. It's perfect. All see Doom at his most glorious, creating an image they will carry with them forever. Without armor, my face is exposed, but I still have enough magic to hide it from the same world I address. Witness how these poor souls live still, because today, Doom permits it. Doom is wisdom. Yes, and Doom is strength, but Doom is also mercy. And even the dullest of animals understand pain. Thus, Doom has hurt these misguided heroes as no one else could grievously. I give myself a restored mask, a new beginning. In fact, these creatures have learned should they ever resume their attack, Doom will not be this charitable again, and each will be forced to make reparations too. But then what stops him right here in his tracks, mid-speech, is that he hears the words that say, "Unk," and when he turns his head, he says, "Who dares?" And then the magic goes from his eyes as he looks on and says, "No, no." And it is the voice of Valeria Richards as she walks, "Unk, Unk," with magic shards here from his armor into her arms. One of her legs already cut off, others in her stomach, and then one right around her neck. And as she stretches out and says the words "Doom," all we see is Valeria's head fall to the ground.
Now, we get some dialogue that's going on while we see this growing story between Doom and Valeria. And it says, this is a love story. It is about a great king who never allowed anyone to touch his heart, and his goddaughter who claimed it so easily, so gracefully, that he never once noticed it happening. The great king protected his goddaughter. He cared for her and taught her things her parents could not. Across the entire cosmos, she was the only one who was to him special. And across the entire cosmos, he was the only one who was to her special too. And when his goddaughter died, the great king's heart, which he had never allowed anyone to touch, broke forever. And you can see the pain in Doom as he screams, "No, Valeria, no!" And as he activates his power and he leaves this plane, he says, "I'm too old for fairy tales. I know, but stories have power. And at present, stories, Valeria, are the only thing holding your body and soul together." She says, I see. What happened next?" And then we see the chaos and the emotions going on in the real world. As the narration says, the great king did all that he could, but he could not save her. He cannot change the past. And as Doom is putting her back together, he says, "Doom does not permit this, little one. Do you hear me? Doom does not permit it." And the narration continues. In fact, he cannot change anything. Her body was rotting and her soul was gone. And you can see Doom protecting and mourning. And even Reed and Sue are trying to get to her, but Doom isn't allowing it. But the dialogue continues. And so the great king voyaged to places mortals were never meant to go. He breached the home and refuge of gods who called themselves the Fashanti. They had extraordinary powers over life and death. They could choose if they wanted to fix a mistake. But these beings, tremendous and powerful, spoke only of duty and consequences. They refused to hear what the king was saying. And so the great king forced them to listen. And Doom's clearly attacking him. And it continues. The king had used all his earthly magic, but there among the Vishanti, there were different rules, different magics. Here, there was magic powered by emotions, and the great king had an infinite supply of that. And Doom is attacking, and he's like, you will heed the words of Doom. But still, the Vishanti would not listen, nor heed, nor obey. So the great king sought better gods, stronger gods. He traveled through yawning voids, through rooms white hot, until on a far and distant shore, the great king finally arrived before the strongest god there was. And for the first time in his life, the great king bargained. And we see who's there. He says, who dares disturb us? Who dare disturbs the living tribunal? And Doom says, Doom dares tribunal. This is Valeria Richards, and she has died, and I require it to be otherwise. I will offer you anything you desire. The tribunal says, bargains carry terrible cost, but one cannot bargain without anything to offer. And you, Doom, have nothing. Doom counters, no, if one seeks justice, tribunal, then one always has something to offer, a more just universe. And tribunal responds and says, perhaps, Victor, but you do not seek justice. You seek the assuagement of guilt and not to suffer. Doom says, yes, I desire those things, as all who live do, but today I seek more. On this occasion, tribunal, Doom will hide nothing from you. Just this once, Doom demands to be fully seen. And the dialogue continues. And so the tribunal, who could destroy the great king with less than a thought, looked into a soul. In that devastating torment, the tribunal saw what they expected to see. The rage, the guilt, the regret, the wild ambition wildly achieved. But they also saw something never seen in the great king before. The living tribunal saw love. They saw that the king had truly come not for himself, but for his goddaughter. To love someone is to put their well-being above your own. And the tribunal knew that to see such a thing and such a thing was unexpected and meritorious. And like that, we head back to that story plane from closer to the beginning of this, where he tells Valeria, and thus, just this once, the living tribunal granted the great king his desire. You are going to live, Valeria. You are going to live. And she says, no, uncle. You told me everything has a cost, and the tribunal must have extracted some terrible, and he cuts her off. There is a cost. Of course there is. I will pay it. She says, you've lost the title of Sorcerer Supreme. I can see that, but there's gotta be more. Please, Uncle Doom, tell me what this cost is. And Doom responds, your soul will go back to where it belongs, and your body will be restored. What it costs is irrelevant. You will return to Latveria, and Doom, only Doom, will deal with the consequences. And just like that, Valeria comes out of a portal, and the Fantastic Four are all happy and approaching her while she's still kind of in shock. And I'm gonna take it from that left boomerang looking leg. That's Reed Richards. And he goes, what happened? What did he? And she says, he did what he promised he'd do to all of us, Dad, right from the start of this. Doom saved me. And we get a bunch of news anchors who are, talking about the aftermath now of everything that's going on. And I'm not going to read the dialogue of this whole panel, but you can see it yourself. America's claiming their second independence. Australia says they're freed from Doom. J.J. Jameson saying threats and menaces is back in the air. Another says pleas for mercy from stateless former citizens. And another says violence continues in cities around the world. I mean, you can tell the whole world is in shambles right now. But later on, Reed's in his lab, and all of a sudden, there's a boom of green light. And I think we all know what that means. And Reed doesn't even turn around, he just says, freedom is returning to the world, you know. Old democracies are being restored. And Doom says, and old dictatorships too, and old borders, old inequities, old suffering, old lies, old hate. An interesting concept of freedom you have, Richards. And Reed responds, we're in a worse place than we were before you. Coups, instability, explosions. And the gulf between those who still support you and those who don't is being filled with violence and terrorism. The way you left our world, Victor, it has scars. You should know that Latveria without you. And Doom interrupts. Tell me, are you enjoying it, the fruits of your labor? And Reed responds, I will say this. There was perhaps never another man more gifted and better suited to be a great and benevolent leader, if he chose to be, than Victor Von Doom. But instead of helping people, you helped yourself. You made fascism appealing, even attractive. You sold it to good people as a reasonable option, and it destroyed all it touched, including you, Victor. You sacrificed your own citizens to prop up a hollow promise of peace and prosperity. And when you were revealed, you demanded still more sacrifice, more suffering, just to keep yourself in power. And you have left our world a far worse place than you found it. Doom responds, no, I have realized the dreams of Sargon and of Alexander and of Gustus and of Osmond in ways even they never could. My only fault was to take over a world that had you and your ilk in it. I've learned that any plan for world liberation, it reads like domination, and Doom continues, liberation, Richards, is destined to fail unless the initial step of this plan is to destroy you self-proclaimed heroes first. Thus, I have not lost. I have merely postponed. Reed's like, you can't be, and he's interrupted. Doom says, but I did not come here to discuss philosophy. I came here to make a demand of you. And Reed's like, the answer's no. Doom turns and says, it was not a request. Richards, I'm dying. Reed says, I won't save you, Victor. What you've done, I don't know how to forgive it. I won't save you. I need you to understand that. And Doom says, of course not. You are as incapable of saving Doom, Richards, as you are defeating him. That's typical Doom. But you gotta love it. But he says, that is not what I demand. Reed says, whatever you're asking, the answer's still no. You've got some trick, some scheme, and Doom interrupts. I traded my life for hers, along with my titles, and my planet, and my soul. She is well. Valeria? Reed says, she is. Doom says, then it was worth it. Reed says, you wouldn't do it selfishly. You've got some plan, and Doom interrupts him again. Silence. I will not spend my last moments here enduring your vain, facile, endlessly effete objections. But Richards, take good care of my world. And like that, Dr. Doom is gone. And as Reed Richards picks up Doom's mask, he reads something engraved on the inside. Upon my death, a copy of this document shall be inscribed in every book, computer system, and information storage device on the planet. I, Victor Von Doom, being of sound mind and body, hereby appoint Reed Richards, son of Nathaniel and Evelyn Richards, to be executor and trustee of this, the final will and testament of Victor Von Doom. I hereby revoke all former wills and codicils made by me, and hereby declare and demand that all that I possess, own, or rule, including my nation of Latveria, shall be bequeathed to whoever first manages to. And you could tell by the look on Reed's face, he does not know how to take this at all.